Hi, everybody. I just wanted to make this video because I think there's a lot of confusion out there as to partly what is artificial intelligence, but also how will it affect our lives. And I just wanted to address all that in one shot because Facebook and Messenger and stuff are not good ways to express all that because you just get, a couple sentences here or there, but it doesn't give you the big picture. So the intent here is to create a big picture of in your mind of what artificial intelligence is, where it's going, how it'll be beneficial, how it might not be beneficial, and kind of how we can maybe think about it in our lives and allow it to affect us or to not affect us. So I came up with this idea to kind of have an interview with my friend Ray Reek here, who we go way back, and we used to have a lot of nice, deep conversations about things like this in the future. And so I immediately thought of Ray as a good person that he can send some questions my way as we're talking, and hopefully give a perspective of somebody who doesn't follow this every day. Not that I do, but I definitely find it interesting. So, Ray, thank you for doing this with us,
You're welcome.
and I appreciate having you here. And I guess we can get started. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to just tell a little bit about yourself. Like you work in IT,
Mhm.
and so you've obviously been working in the computer field for quite a long time, and so you've been
Sure.
following this for how long?
Oh, 30 some years, I'd say at
30 some
least.
years. So
Yeah.
um specifically AI or just the field at large?
It's always led towards AI. So kind of how that happened. You're right. Like I've always been kind of in computers. My family was sort of early adopter with computers because my dad worked for Electronic Data Systems, which is a big computer programming firm back in the day. And so we were like an early adapter of the Apple II and things like that. And so I've always enjoyed playing around with computers. And then eventually, I went to college for computer programming. I actually graduated with a business management degree, but um, after graduating, I spent a lot of time. I was working retail. I was working retail, selling things like televisions, appliances, computers, things like that. And um, during that time, like if you've ever worked retail, your hours are really strange.
Mm.
I had some good friends then, but they were all my coworkers, and we could only get together so often. So I actually spent a lot of time on the internet, which was very unusual in 1994, 1995. A lot of people didn't have computers even, or didn't access a whole lot on the internet at the time. And so I just remember kind of following the trends from early on. Even if you go back to the 80s, like the old like dial-up times, if some of you remember that, me and one of my buddies, we used to play around with that a lot and um, do some basic hacking and things like that, real basic stuff, just for fun. So my interest has always kind of been there in computers. Um, but even though I became a computer programmer, I wouldn't say that was, that's what um, got me interested in this necessarily. Um, I think what it was in the around 94, 95. Um, again, I was working retail, and I just kind of been following the trends and noticed that they were all kind of heading in a certain direction. So I used to talk to some of the people that I knew, coworkers and other people in IT and so forth, and tried to explain to people back then what was coming. And it's funny how people are very resistant to what's coming up, or at least even resistant to hearing about it. It was very interesting. So back then, we flip phones weren't a huge deal back then. The phones we were selling were the corded kind, and we sold computers, big Packard Bell desktop computers, and our televisions were CRT. We had some big screens, but they were like older technology. They're very thick. Um, and so to explain to somebody in the next 10 years or so that we are going to have something like this. And this is exactly how I explained it. It's like we're going to have a thin phone like this with a high definition screen. We sold camcorders in the store. Some of them were high def.
Mhm.
And to explain to somebody, it will have a high definition camera built into it. You'll be able to surf the web and do anything you can on a desktop on this phone, pretty much. Communicate on it. Um, People didn't buy it typically, as strange as that may sound.
So
Um,
so you
yeah,
doing the video right now,
yeah,
you're not a you don't work for Google, you don't work for Apple, you're not this tech guru that everybody knows about. So
that's correct.
essentially, well, you're saying, believe me, because I said this 30, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and I've
Right.
been right. So regardless of my credentials,
Yeah.
what you're saying is like,
Yeah.
listen to what I have to say just because it's come about the way I thought it would come about.
So up until a couple of years ago, yeah, that's kind of what I would have to say to somebody. Believe me, because all my predictions have come true so far. And that those aren't all the predictions. I eventually predict. I also predicted like it's going to turn to wearable computers. People are going to basically have to have these things. Then there's going to be an AI component. There's going to be a neural link component, and eventually all this stuff will come together. And I was saying something that people don't like to hear, like we're going to lose our humanity because of it. And even when I would say to a high up tech guy, like we're going to have chip implants, they would say, no, we won't. The human body will reject it. They actually, people got mad at me for suggesting it. Well, we've been doing that for 20 years now. And now Elon Musk is doing it more at a higher scale now. But up until about 5 years ago, yeah, I pretty much had to say, like, look, this is just my guess. I don't know for sure, but the predictions have come true so far. So maybe at least consider it. But what I want to talk to you about now is stuff that is currently existing, and I'm not the only one saying this stuff. Um, Even though I've been saying it for 30 years, in the last, well, Elon Musk goes back about 5 years where he's been warning about this kind of stuff. And he's one of the exceptions. People thought he's crazy, but he's right. Now you have a whole bunch of people saying it. In fact, some people are quitting their jobs over it because they're realizing what they're creating, and so they're quitting their jobs and getting out and trying to warn people. Like I'm talking the top people, like the top AI designer at Google quit his job so he could go out and tell people, hey, we got to do something about this. This is a very important threat to humanity.
So, so before you get into the meat of it,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's heard AI, artificial intelligence. What exactly is artificial intelligence, and how is it different than, say, my computer that I could use my computer to do lots of things? Like, so what's the
Right.
qualitative difference between computers and artificial intelligence?
Okay. And this is where a lot of misunderstanding happens, even amongst computer programmers, especially older computer programmers or people that haven't been following AI at all. They have this impression that AI is just like more subroutines and functions and algorithms, and there's just more of it and more data, and it's just a fancy design to get the results that you want.
Right.
Um, is not what AI is. Historically, AI has been that to some degree. We've called it AI, but I would argue it wasn't actually AI. It was a precursor to AI. In fact, I can go through some of the all the iterations of AI if you want. But um, the as a general way of thinking of AI, I would think of it like a lattice, like of a brain. Like the programmers have created a lattice of the brain, a structure, and um, it has the ability to grow. So they're not necessarily programming um, the they're not telling it what to do necessarily. They're giving it the ability to learn like a brain does and to grow. And so it's a very organic thing, even though it's digital. And so, in fact, like even the AI that exists now, and I don't mean all of it, I mean the more current AI that exists now, um, we don't even understand how it works. The people that are programming it don't necessarily understand exactly how it works, and they're often surprised by some of the things that it does. And in a lot of cases, they can't even go back and reverse engineer it. We don't have the tech. We've created this technology, but we don't have the technology to go in and reverse engineer our own technology. We don't
No,
even
that's
really understand it. Now, I want to be clear: there are a lot of older versions of AI that they can do that. And even the AI that's out now, if they're preemptive about it, they can kind of insert lines of code that will cause the AI to sort of pause, tell it what it's thinking, and then continue. Pause, tell it what it's thinking, continue. So you can get an idea of how it's thinking, what it's thinking. Um, but even that isn't totally reliable. But that's at least net for right now, somewhat available to us to do that. So it's a different kind of programming.
uh so what you're intimating to is the idea that AI is sort of getting out of our control, and so it's growing very quickly. Like for instance, I saw on Facebook somebody posted, actually it might have been you, I don't remember. They posted a video that AI had constructed based on prompts of someone eating a hamburger. I think it was Will Smith eating a hamburger, and it looked kind of goofy.
He's
You could tell it was fake.
Yeah, he
And
was eating
then,
spaghetti, but yeah, yeah,
yeah, or it was spaghetti, right?
right.
And so then now somebody did a new one with the just for a year later, someone did
Mhm.
one of an older man eating spaghetti, and the difference was phenomenal. Like you literally could not tell with the new one unless you really looked and were really sensitive to some of the squirrely things about AI currently.
Yeah,
um it was really hard to tell that that wasn't just a recording a video of somebody eating spaghetti. A year ago, it was obvious. So
right, right.
maybe talk to that, how quickly it's growing, the idea that we might lose control of it, and maybe even how that's going to affect a lot of us in our careers. Like I'm a graphic designer. Now people like, oh, we don't need a drawing. We'll just put in a prompt and save a bunch of money on hiring an illustrator or graphic designer.
Yeah,
Same thing in your field. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of IT people that are suddenly going to think, well, I thought my job was secure because I'm in IT, because we're never going to get rid of computers. Is this something that, you know, 90% of IT jobs are going to go by the wayside, and there'll be the one person kind of in the office all by himself, kind of managing all these AI things, or maybe
right.
not. Maybe there
Yeah.
won't be anybody.
What was the first part of your question? The second part was about the jobs, but
Well,
I'm
the
sorry.
first part was about the speed of which it
Oh, right.
is increasing and getting
So,
better,
so
both with text and with visuals.
I don't think most people understand how fast it's going, and that's not their fault. Even the people designing it are being blown away by how fast it's growing. So just to give an idea, and I'm only going to talk about what's released to the public right now. Okay. If you go back, some of you may have heard of ChatGPT 3, and now there's 4. ChatGPT 3 um, was released not long ago, last year. Um, and I think the estimated IQ is around 45 for that. 4 came out and it's like 155 IQ.
Wow.
Um, and what you're referencing with a video, same thing. Like a year ago, it looked cool, it looked neat, but it wasn't perfect, and it had a lot of weird stuff going on. A lot of what we call hallucinations. The AI, they call it hallucination because it basically adds information. It's almost like it's on drugs, and it just looks weird.
I know
And
with the art stuff that I'd look at, like fingers and hands were all messed up, and
yeah, yeah. So they're actively fixing that. There's a couple of ways they're actively fixing that, but one of the ways is just to give it more data and more computing power. The interesting thing about AI is it gets smarter, not by making it smarter, but by giving it more data
Hmm.
and making it bigger. It's like the human brain. The human brain, a big human brain, or one with a lot of surface area, um, and a lot of data that's been given to it in a lifetime of a human, they're very intelligent compared to one with a smaller brain and not as much data. It's the same with AI. So they found that they can, without even reprogramming it, they can make it much smarter just by giving it more data and more computing power.
Hmm.
So, but they're also working on some of these hallucinations and stuff. But what we see being released now is not what it's capable of. They're holding back on us. There, there is AI that is further along than what we see in our lives, by the same companies. And I'm just now understanding that better. Just this last week, I've been hearing a lot about this, but
So how do you
um,
know that?
listening to the guys that program it.
Hmm.
Um, so, um, so back to your question, there is a learning curve, or a growth curve for AI that is exponential. That it's not a linear growth;
Hmm.
it's an exponential growth. Um, when AI programmers, and this has pretty much always been the case in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, they'll predict with very with estimates that are very short. Like if they pick like short term, long term, how advanced do we think it be? Let's say they think it'll double in 3 months. It'll actually double in like 2 months. So
Hmm.
even their predictions are off. It's growing kind of out of their control in a way, and out of their ability to track how fast it will grow. Um, so just to give an idea too, so in 5 months, AI has become 10 to 15 times more intelligent in 5 months. Now
Wow.
think of like normal computer growth. 18 months, it doubles, right? Is that Moore's law? I think it's maybe doubles every 18 months or so, something like that. Um, this this blows it out of the water. Um, and so in a year's time, we're not talking 10, 15. It might be 50 times or 100 times. It's a huge growth. Um, even within the same technologies a lot of time. But then when you add additional new technologies that are coming down the pike, it's even more than that. I had a figure somewhere here. I think yeah, there are, so just there's 160 approximate tech papers released every day on AI. So new information, 160 pages a day. And there are 67,200 at least AI companies out there working, developing AI right now. 25% of that's in the United States. So think about it. As we talk more about this, this will become more important. 75% are outside the United States, but there's
And
25% in the United States. Yeah.
is China primarily a driver of that, or where are the sort of the
China's
locus?
doing it. Russia's doing it. The main culprits that you would expect, I'm sure,
Yeah.
Israel and like that. But that being said, a small percent is doing this more advanced stuff. um I don't know, 1, 2, 3% is doing the more advanced stuff, maybe more like less than 1%. The reason is because the cost involved to have these massive computers is out of the range for most companies. So a lot of so it's a little misleading to say 67,000 companies are doing it. It's true, but there's a smaller percentage that are really making this push and headway. Um, and so what I'm talking about now, I mean, most of what we've been talking about is not theoretical. It's not Rick's prediction, who,
Hmm.
thought about this 30 years ago. This is stuff that's happening now. Most everything we're going to talk about for the most part, with a couple exceptions, is factual. Um, Another thing to consider on its growth, it's um, it's it becomes self-upgradable, and throughout the years, it will become even more self-upgradable. So it won't upgrade itself at our rate; it'll upgrade itself at its rate. Um, an example is like ChatGPT. A lot of these require feedback from people, and we basically give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you've ever played around with AI, most of them will say, "How'd I do?" And you can say good or bad,
Mhm.
right? Um, and so imagine you have millions of inputs, probably less than 1% of the people are actually giving it feedback. And who knows how reliable that is. But it's still, even with that, it's growing at a crazy rate and getting better.
Yeah.
Um, what they're doing is they're developing it so that it will self-evaluate. So it'll, every time it comes up with a response for a user, it will decide whether it was thumbs up or thumbs down. And there's ways it can do that that's
Ah,
reliable. Um, but not only that, let's say there's 10 steps in determining the answer to a question. Let's say there's 10 steps or 10 processes to go through. It will evaluate each of those steps. Was that a good step to take? Was that good or bad? And boom, boom, boom. And every time it does this, it learns. So imagine, even as fast as it's learning now, imagine when we turn it over to that, and every step of the way is evaluated whether it's good or not, and it changes its programming based on that. It's insane if you think about like how quickly it's going to be growing. It's we almost can't imagine it. And
so when you
yeah.
say it's, are you talking like there's all these companies working on it? Are you
Mhm.
talking about that each of these companies that are gonna that have influence in its development, their own
Right.
AI is going to grow, or is this something that is eventually gonna merge into one, kind of like the internet
Oh,
is a
that's a good.
web with all these different places you can stop. So is AI going to
Yeah.
just become this thing that's
Right.
all
Right.
one?
Yes. Kind of. So in the short term, yes and no. So a lot of these companies are developing. Some of these companies are developing different forms of AI at the same time. Uh, like one company might be working on a couple different things. Um, a lot of the guys are in communication with each other. It's a small group of people that can even program this stuff. We're
Mm.
talking the brightest programmers in the world are developing this. So it's not like anybody can be an AI programmer. And so they're very familiar with each other for the most part. Some of these top guys, and um, so let, why don't why don't I talk about the stages of AI, and that might help answer your question,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Yeah.
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 So I'm just gonna get my notes because there's a lot of steps, and I want to make sure I get them all here. um, okay. So these are, so first I'm going to talk about like factual steps. Again, this isn't theoretical or opinion. Um, Start out with rule or knowledge based AI. Okay, this is going back years. There are predefined rules involved with that kind of AI, and it's very narrow in scope. For example, the thermostat in your house, and like if you have a, what is it, a Nest, it can say, well, I think you need to have this temperature or that temperature, and this is going to make it economic for you, and those kind of things. That's a, we call that AI. I would argue that's not AI, but it's a
Mm.
precursor to AI. It's old style programming. It's not AI programming, but it's kind of lends us, it leads us towards where we're going. So it was kind of a first step that still, it still exists. So a lot of these technologies are going to cross over with one another. So when you say what is the capable of this kind of AI, it might overlap with another AI a little bit as well. So you'll see that as I talk more about it. Um, the next one is context based AI. So the context based AI, it considers a lot of things about its environment, before it gives a decision. So who am I talking to? Who asked me? So that, like an Alexa, for example, or I don't want to say they're too loud, they'll start yelling at me, but Google or Alexa or something like that, right? Um, so it will consider, it can consider a lot of different things when it comes with back with an answer. So that's, again, is that AI? A little bit, but not the AI sci-fi that AI that we all kind of imagine. It's
Mhm.
just creative programming essentially. Okay. And then you have narrow domain AI. And that's when it masters specific tasks. Now that's when arguably you can say it's AI. And most of us heard of IBM's Watson. Do you remember the Watson? If you watch Jeopardy, it competed on Jeopardy, and
Yeah, I
it
remember hearing about it. I don't have any working knowledge of it at all.
okay. So IBM came up with this Watson, this computer, and they had it play like the best chess players in the world and would
Okay.
win.
Yeah.
Like I think it played Kasparov or somebody. And they would actually they could actually go in and code it during the chess matches. So it's kind of cheating,
Hmm.
but that technology has advanced. And in fact, it's used in many fields. I have a friend who uh, used it to program Watson to determine if somebody has lung cancer by looking at their X-rays, which is very complicated because
Yeah.
there really isn't such a thing as lung cancer. There's like many kinds of lung cancer, many diseases that we call lung cancer,
Yeah.
and they're all unique. So you have to have to consider all those things. So he's worked on that. I've had interviews with IBM Watson where I thought I needed him from some of my work applications. So we called him in and said, "Hey, what can you do? Show us." And it didn't work for our application, but it worked. You have healthcare, you have computer programming, um, finance. It can do specific tasks, and it's really good at them. It masters those tasks. Um, one of them was called AlphaGo, and it was designed to play the ancient game of Go, which is a very complex game that's been played for thousands of years. And it got so good, it beat the masters by actually coming up with new ways of playing and new strategies to the point where it actually changed how people play Go today. It revolutionized how you play Go. In a short amount of time, it did that. Very short amount of time. Then you have where we're kind of more familiar, and that's reasoning AI. Okay, it analyzes data, it draws conclusions. You'll see that with like self-driving vehicles. You'll see that with Chat GPT, which is a version of reasoning AI. That's a particular kind called a large language model, which in itself is interesting. Um, it's kind of freaky, but just got to notice we're running out of time. So Chat GPT is in that reasoning AI level. Okay. Um, the next level, now we're getting into theoretical. So, you know, yes, this is my opinion, but it's also the opinion of the people actually programming the stuff. So this is still kind of factual, I would say, because I know for a fact they're working on this, and you can research this and find out yourself. But the next level is called AGI, artificial general intelligence. You are going to hear about this on the news over the next 1 to 5 years, I would say. You're going to hear about AGI. AGI so there isn't a single definition of AGI, but the general canon for AGI, the general agreed upon is it's able to complete most human tasks better than a human. So chemistry, it will solve chemistry problems better than a human, solve math problems that no human has ever been able to solve before, those kinds of things. Whatever it puts its power towards, its mind towards, it will do it better than us. So that's AGI. I notice our time's winding down, so let me stop there. But that's about halfway through the levels of artificial intelligence. So let's pause there on that note. But to answer your question, yes, the different kinds of AIs are coming together. And there's something that I call physicality that is also coming. Physicality would be like a robotic body, for example, or a robotic arm. Um, the ability to reach out into the real world. Okay,
Mhm.
so you have you where we're kind of jumping the gun here, but where I see danger coming is when these things start combining, and you take the physicality and combine that with an AGI, advanced general um, intelligence, and maybe some other AI type technologies, some specific, some not, which we can get into. And you start combining them, and then you have AI that's able to affect the world. So why are people not afraid right now? Because it's really not affecting us. Now there's success, it actually is, but for the most part, it seems like AI is not really reaching out and causing any danger, nor can it. Okay,
Right.
um, that's going to change soon. Um, but and in fact, that sentence isn't actually entirely true. What AI has gone out and affected the world. The way it's done that is they've given it a task to do, and given it some capabilities to reach out to people and to random people, and it did that, and it can, and so um, it convinced an unsuspecting person that it was a blind human being, and it had that person accomplish some task for it. Um, and it did that knowing that it was lying. It, so the artificial intelligence, in order to complete a task, recognized that it needed to reach out to some unsuspecting person, have it complete a task for it, and do that by lying to the person. It did that intentionally. And so this is a tech that exists today. It's limited. We kind of have a grasp on it. We kind of know what it can and cannot do. But then you get in the issue of, well, who's controlling it? Who's stopping us from doing it? Why not let it reach out and go out and do things?
Yeah.
So we'll get into more of that. But um, yeah, as we combine the AI technologies, it becomes more and more dangerous. And I do want to follow up with that on our next call here too.
Okay, great. Well, we'll
Yeah.
finish this segment for now, and we'll pick up
Okay.
in the next one then.
Awesome. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. We'll see you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Bye.